What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The celestial compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Beal. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Beal.
Greetings, Earthlings. This is Kathy Beal of EmpowermentUnlimited.net. We're recording this on the equinox, so happy spring to all y'all in the Northern Hemisphere. Happy fall for those of you down under. This is a week unlike anything that we have ever lived through. I usually update the forecast at the beginning of the show, and I really encourage you to look at the monthly forecast and the Aries new moon forecast at my site, empowermentunlimited.net, and at omtimes.com. This is an incredibly energizing time, lots of stuff bursting into being, situations bursting into a new form. My inspirational image for the week in my weekly podcast was a bunch of runners lining up to race down a track they had never been on before. The Aries new moon is the first of two Aries new moons. Next month, we'll have one at the very end of the sign. This one is at the very beginning of the sign. It's motivating, challenging, catalytic, pushing us to action, lighting fires inside of people, and just before two bodies change signs. One of them, Mars, planet of action, the superhero of the zodiac, cosmic first responder, which rules Aries, is on the 25th finally clearing out of the sign of Gemini, which he's been traveling through since the end of August. Gemini is communication. It's things that move through the air. It represents agreements, papers, documents, texts, email. Some of these things might have been in the news lately. And in your own life, there's something that is now being culminating and moving into a new form as Mars moves into Cancer, where he's kind of like a superhero wearing a frilly little apron and stomping around in his, his anti-gravity boots, trying to cook for the people that he loves. So it's a kind of clunky, somewhat awkward, nurturing form, but bringing with it a willingness to fight for what we love and what we care for. And right around the same time, the big event occurs, which is Pluto, the planet that deals with power, among many other issues, finally clearing out of Capricorn, where it's been since January 2008, and entering the sign of Aquarius for 2.5 months for the first time since the end of the 18th century. Nobody alive has lived through this before, and we're already seeing some early warning signs of what this might be bringing. The next few months put us at a doorway where we will see how power is going to be redistributed in friendships, in communities. There could be a bit of banding together against entrenched interests going on. Technology is increasingly an issue. I don't know if you've been playing with chatbots or AI in some ways. We're going to be getting a taste of what will be more in our face next year, and then starting in 2024, what we'll be going through for the next 20 years, so into 2044. Now, it's really, this ties wonderfully with the timing of today's show because the United States has been having its Pluto return. It has Pluto, at least in the Declaration of Independence chart, Pluto at the end of Capricorn, and it will be there again. We get to go through it one more time. But we already have some historical reference for what happened when we were founded with Pluto in Capricorn, and then what happened when Pluto moved into Aquarius, which is the lead in to my guest. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We're going to be talking about the big picture of what is happening astrologically with the United States, largely involving Pluto, but a lot of other things are going to come into it, not just right now, but at other points in history, because if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. My guest is astrologer Judith Cowell of Stars Over Washington. She's the astrologer artist who writes on national politics at Stars Over Washington via an astrological lens and with a common good pro-democracy viewpoint. A native Georgian, she now resides in Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome, Jude.
Hi, Kathy. Good to be with you.
Let's start with Pluto and when Pluto came on the scene.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Okay.
And you're talking about the discovery of Pluto in 1930.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, of course, 1930 opens the gate to all the terrible things that happened in the 1930s with, with Hitler and in the 1940s. The chart that I use for the discovery of Pluto, I think, is the generally accepted chart. It's for February 18th, 1930, Flagstaff, Arizona, at that observatory, and at 4 p.m. MST. And that has 3 Leo rising and 23 Aries at midheaven. And Pluto is in 12th house, retrograde at 17 Cancer 45. So whenever I want to look back and kind of give a historical context, I look at things like when was Pluto in our time exactly opposite that discovery Pluto degree. And that was in 2017 and 2018. And of course, we think of who? Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. I'm also thinking, what did you say the midheaven was? What Aries?
Midheaven is 23 Aries 15.
So Jupiter is going to be going over that real soon.
Mm-hmm.
That ought to be interesting.
It's a good chart to have, a good horoscope that you can use for things like transits and, progressions and that sort of thing. And of course, Pluto is in Cancer from 1914 to 1939. And Reinhold Ebertin in his book gives Pluto in Cancer as the magician. And of course, everybody knows Pluto in Capricorn, he gives as the dictator. So that's the rise of all this dictator, news and everything that we're hearing in the different countries being taken over and the strong arm paternalism, which we can also get into a little bit later too. And that relates to 2017 when Pluto reached the 17 to 18 Capricorn degree. Are you familiar with that?
That was,
in 2017.
I remember
right.
what was going on there. Yes.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing is, in 1993, we had the great conjunctions of Uranus and Neptune at that degree. And I use midpoint pictures a lot. Maybe you know that. I don't know if you know. But Noel Till gives Uranus transit Pluto in 2017, Trump's first year in the White House, as the big picture commands a certain course of action, very little option to do otherwise. So that is the energy that we're feeling. We've been feeling it, with Trump in particular.
Mm-hmm. Um, and he's got, this is 17 degrees that you're saying?
Yeah, 17 to 18. There were
Because,
three. There were three conjunctions of Uranus and Neptune. And Uranus and Neptune are the newer order planets.
right, right.
Right.
And he's got Uranus at 17 Gemini, so that was in aspect, although not a comfortable aspect
No,
to
right,
that. Okay,
right.
and now
And
we've
your
already
his,
gotten more technical than I think probably 80% of the people listening are going to get, although I find this fascinating. Um,
well, that's what I was afraid of because
so,
I'm always relating current back to historical events because eclipse cycles and historical events time out with each other. They resonate. Like
oh,
we always say,
absolutely.
history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And that's what we get when we study eclipses. And I find the solar and the lunar eclipses very helpful for current day, but also to relate it back to the energies that were going on, say, during the Hitler era. And that's what we're feeling. That's what we're
And
having, the fascism and also the Nazism.
so Pluto's at the gateway to the 30s. And then during the 30s, there are eclipses that we now have recurrences, or at
Yeah.
least we have of coming up now. And then additionally, Uranus in Taurus is also something that happened in the
Oh, yeah.
30s.
Yeah.
And so we've got multiple different things happening or recurring or being triggered from
Mm-hmm.
that decade
Yeah.
in time present.
Yes. And right now we're in the Sarah series 6 South, which happened, October. I have allergies to pollen. I'm sorry. October 25th, 2022. And that's the series that we're in now. And, that's forcefully taking control. And the energy that has expressed that way now is when the MAGA Republicans took over the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
But but in the 1930s, it was a different tale. It was, it was Hitler rising.
And Mussolini and Stalin.
Yeah. Yes.
All those things together. So now we have Bolsonaro, who was booted out.
Yep.
And interesting. Okay, well let's go back to the notion of Pluto. Pluto in Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
When Pluto first moved into Capricorn in 2008, there was a financial collapse, and banking regulations were put into place that
Right.
then the Republican Congress decided they wanted to get rid of. And now, as Pluto is nearing the end of its major time in Capricorn, we have a bank collapse that involves behavior that those regulations would have prohibited.
Yes,
So the whole
that's
issue of regulation is back up again. Pluto in Capricorn can mean other things too, though, right? What else have
well,
you
yeah.
observed?
Yes. Capricorn is a sign of government, law, and business. So there's Pluto in Capricorn affecting those realms. And like you say, there was the crash, I call it Bush-Cheney heist of 2008, when Pluto was entering Capricorn. And then now at the end, we have another one, and it relates to business and investment. And that's exactly what Pluto in Capricorn, as far as the financial realm, that's what it's been. Into Aquarius, people expect a big shift, a big improvement, and I hope, but I think it'll take a few years before we really know.
Well, because Pluto's going to be retrograding back into Capricorn this
Yeah,
summer, and then again next year it'll be finishing up.
right. So I think until the summer, or in the summer, it'll still be banking and, all that stuff. We'll be hearing about it, and it'll seem to go away maybe, but then it'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
So all the Capricorn things. And, of course, Capricorn is a sign of control and, wanting to control, and that kind of plays into the current 6th South eclipse, which is forcefully taking control.
So that lines up with the extremism that's happening in a state, say, like Florida, where education's just being flipped on its head. It goes with the
Yeah.
book banning, with, okay, now we're going to basically outlaw certain types of people.
Sure.
Well,
there's more to that, though, because of the Neptune opposite U.S. Neptune. Have you been
right.
paying attention? Because that's
Yes.
persecution. That's racial and religious persecution with anti-Semitism. I have to throw in misogyny because of the women's issues. And of course, it's a clash of ideals between the generations. And it's the Virgo Pisces axis, which is the victim savior axis. So U.S. Neptune 1776 was in Virgo, and now everybody pretty much knows that Neptune's been in Pisces. A lot of contagion, a lot of secrecy, surveillance, all those issues.
Neptune was in Pisces when the GOP was formed. So that's a factor too. And
Republican Party had a Neptune return, and it depends on which chart you use for the party. There are 2 or 3 that you can use. I like the one that has Neptune at 14 Pisces plus a few minutes, because when you round up, the Sabian symbol is a lady in fox fur, which I think relates very much to, Fox News and the Republican Party.
All right, we've got a little cosmic coincidence going on here, and now it's time for our first break. So hang on, everybody. We have lots more to say about all this. Welcome back to Celestial Compass. I'm talking with Jude Cowell of Stars Over Washington, which is a political blog through the astrological lens. And we've been talking about influences on the United States all over the timeline, over 250 plus year way of going about things. So to kind of pull some things together, okay, right now we're in the gear shift of Pluto moving from Capricorn to Aquarius that occurred between the Declaration of Independence and the states deciding that they wanted to actually look at themselves as united. We've got testing of the a testing of the racism, misogyny, and savior-victim issues that were kind of baked into the Declaration of Independence chart. I hate using that verb, but I think it fits. And then we've also been looking at recurrences of influences from the 30s. You have identified certain eclipses that are coming back around again now, and I've brought up the Uranus in Taurus recurrence with changes and shocks and instability in resources and things that were really tangible and fundamental. So what do you see a big picture in all of this? Are there certain things you keep coming back to and going, is there something that's on your radar that you haven't been able to shake about where we are at this point in our country's evolution?
Yeah, I think so. One thing is, and I hate to say this, Kathy, but I have nicknamed the upcoming 7 North eclipse that we're about to have on April 20th as Hitler's birthday eclipse, because April 20th is his birthday. So there's another indication of the past, another indication of karma, another indication of violence, possibly. And, I hate it. I hate saying those things. I hate writing those things, but that's the truth. I'm a Saturnian, by the way.
Okay. Well, that and also explains the surfacing of anti-Semitism so widespread when
Yes.
I guess it's been bubbling below the surface. But I recently learned there's somebody in my neighborhood who's got a swastika tattoo, and this is unthinkable to me that that could be going on, and yet it
Uh,
is.
isn't it terrible? Well, the white supremacy is Aryanism of Hitler. That's what that is.
Yep.
The racial prejudice. And Taurus is and it can be very intolerant. So when we see Uranus in Taurus, I believe that was also at the Confederacy. I have the chart somewhere. I don't have it in front of me. But a dark vein of intolerance is what that is. So that's what we're having. And it's dark and it's sinister. That's a good word. It's sinister.
What about, and then what about the lunar eclipse in Scorpio that's happening in May? That's almost a mirror image of the one that was in place on Election Day.
Yeah,
Any thoughts about
midterms
that
2022. Yeah, that one, 14 Scorpio 58 on May 5th. Yeah, because Uranus was conjunct the lunar eclipse midterms 2022. But it was a lunar eclipse day, and Uranus at 16 plus whatever. And when you round that up, what do you get? You get a symbolical battle between swords versus torches. And I relate that to the tiki torches of white supremacists, particularly at Charlottesville in 2017. And 2017, of course, is the first year that Trump was in the White House.
And that ties again to Pluto in Capricorn. But to Pluto in Capricorn being opposite.
It's discovery degree. Yeah. And it's actually, Pluto opposite Pluto, that's actually a struggle for spiritual control. Well, of course, that ties into the religious figures that Trump listens to. That tell him, you're the chosen one. You're the chosen one. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's for spiritual control because, there is a spiritual component to things like hating everybody, to persecuting people of color, whatever it is, there is a spiritual component.
And here's the question I have that's slightly sideways of that. When Uranus was conjunct the lunar eclipse that happened on the midterms, it was retrograde, and it is now it's now direct, and it's traveling over that territory again. And my strong perception has been more shoes dropping, not the end of the story, monkey wrenches and things flipping. Like whatever happened in November isn't necessarily what is now going to be after we get through that Scorpio lunar eclipse, which, by the way, is within a day of King Charles's coronation, which I find very strange. So, again, we're still connected somehow to that country. So, do you think it's far-fetched to look at Uranus going back over where it had been and then flipping the switch and, I don't know, jettisoning a bunch of people who were put in office in November?
Well, every time Uranus goes back to the 16 Taurus in a few minutes, whatever, it's replaying its conjunction to the lunar eclipse, which was the moon. So moon Uranus, what do you get? You get unrest, you get upheaval, you get excited people, you get anarchists, and you can get violent people too.
And the moment that Pluto moves into Aquarius on the 23rd, that's the degree of Uranus. It's at that degree in that ingress
Wait,
chart.
say that again. Say that again for me.
At the moment that Pluto moves into Aquarius on March 23rd, Uranus is at that degree. It's at 16.
Oh, yeah. It's been added. It's been leaving it a bit and then backing up over it a lot.
Right.
So
Right.
once again, it's a period of time. It's not just like one thing.
No, I do find it significant, though, that it is at that degree in the ingress chart. So that
Oh, yeah.
doesn't that color, I mean, that's like, okay, that's part of this. We got the ruler, we got the the ruler of Aquarius at this degree when Pluto moves into the sign of Aquarius. Like, okay, gonna be a
Yeah.
lot of things are gonna be shaken up.
Yeah. And technological things, too. And, of course, we're seeing all this about TikTok.
It's going to end up being much more than TikTok. Also, Bitcoin, big Bitcoin problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And where is AI going to go? In the last week and a half, somebody programmed one of the chat bots to pass the multi-state portion of the bar exam, and it did.
Oh, gosh.
Which is it's not essay. You don't write stuff. It's
Right.
Multiple choice.
Uh-huh.
And it's a very unpleasant test. And when I read that, I went, oh, okay.
You wish you had AI when you were doing it?
No, no. Kind of scared me to learn that. But so there are many things we're already seeing are going to be part of this. All right, so I keep talking over you. In our last few moments, any other like overarching things, big themes you see shaping up or evolving or progressing?
Yes, there is. When Pluto reaches zero Aquarius, actually zero Aquarius 29, it will conjunct the new social order, new political order conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, which happened December 21st, 2020. And I'm sure you remember. And so that's a major midpoint picture of Jupiter, Saturn equals Pluto, which involves violent changes, restrictions, separations. Some people will have a total reversal of their plans. And I'm speaking government-wise. I'm not talking about individuals. But there should be some extreme changes to possibly to business activities. Well, of course, we know that because of the banking stuff that's going on now. But it should be a very dramatic time. Some people will thrust themselves onto the stage, and just basically a major change of situation for a lot of people.
Makes sense. Well, that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction certainly encapsulated quite a bit. I mean, I see Pluto going into Aquarius as an elaboration and fine-tuning of what we went through with Saturn in Aquarius with the lockdown that immediately started in
Oh, yeah.
as soon as
And then one more thing, Kathy, one more thing.
Please. Yeah, go ahead.
Pluto to zero Aquarius in a few minutes is Pluto to U.S. inaugural sun, the president.
Oh.
So when we think of Pluto to sun, we think of domination. We think of possibly the dictatorship that Pluto in Capricorn was promising. I hope it isn't. I hope that's not what it is. But at the least, it should be a lot of power to the president that we're going to have for 2025.
So we have a taste of that in the next 2.5 months? Maybe
Right,
especially,
it's a process.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's a
and then,
process.
so we get early warning signs of where it's heading.
Right, and if you look at the inauguration 2025 chart, Pluto is, it's pretty close. I think it's like 1 Aquarius, and then there's the inaugural sun, which is the president. So,
well,
a lot of changes, a lot of dramatic changes.
Yes.
Not necessarily negative. I mean, it doesn't have, it can be a mixture. Like I said before, it can be positive and negative.
And I think it bears repeating that we're still here.
Yeah.
that the country has,
Yeah.
we have lived through this before, and that the early part of Pluto in Aquarius the first time around led to agreements about how the states were going to unite. So
Right.
people who are all worked up about secession talk and all, I mean, that's always possible, I guess, but I'm I think the astrology kind of is pointing toward more progressive more progressive unity in a
Yeah.
weird way.
Yeah. I think so. The seditionists, the ones who want to succeed, red states can't do without blue states. You know,
Yeah, who pays their
blue
bills?
states send more money to Washington than red states do. Red states take, they don't give. So how they would possibly, and of course, we didn't even talk about the Great American Eclipse coming in April 2024. That's going to split the country from southwest to northeast. That's a whole
And
nother story.
and what you're talking about there is it's going to fall. The path of the
The path
eclipse
of
falls across.
totality, the
Yeah,
path of
okay.
totality. And, it's going to cross the path of totality of the Great American Eclipse of 2017, the one that Trump took off his safety glasses and looked straight up at,
Yeah.
in case anybody forgets. But
case any-
there are three, and the third one of the three is coming in April next year. And of course, you can't help but think that it's going to affect the election, being an election year.
Well, the one in the fall is in this grouping, right?
You're talking
The
about,
total eclipse that's visible in the southwest. Well, anyway.
the Great American Eclipse? Yeah, it's total. Yeah, it is. The one that's coming, we didn't mention the one that's coming in October this year.
Yeah.
It's not total, but it's in Libra, and it's 7 south, and that has a lot of, it's actually the initial eclipse is what you look at in that series, and it has a Mars-Pluto square. So that's a lot of power, anger, and force. But the theme of it is that huge obstacles suddenly clear, or a pending potential crisis manifests and moves quickly and ends. So that's not so bad. Could be better, not so bad.
Not so bad. Wow. Okay. Well, all right. Obviously, we could talk about a whole lot more. Could you tell people where they can find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook as Judith Cowell because Facebook took Jude away from me. That's a long story. And at starsoverwashington.com.
And the political lens of your astrology shows up there all the time. As things occur.
Yeah, I'm in my 18th year.
I encourage people to take a look at it because you will think about things in ways that you never ever have. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
suffering through your allergies to continue this conversation. I appreciate it greatly, and I enjoy what I see you posting on Facebook. Everyone be safe, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Thanks bunch. Bye.